In this first lesson, we're going to learn a little bit about Prisma and GraphQL as a whole. We're going to install the Prisma utility so that we can initialize our Prisma data server, and we're going to go through exactly how the GraphQL data model works. And finally, to wrap it all up, we're going to add a new data type to our data model, so that way we can see how to add more types. The first thing we want to do is install something called Prisma. And Prisma is a command line utility that allows us to basically bootstrap an entire GraphQL server. So in order to do that, we're going to use npm install-g Prisma. Alternatively, you can use yarn, and the command for that is yarn global add. I'll go ahead and use yarn. Let's go ahead and make a folder for our project, and let's call it Zenva GraphQL. And to bootstrap, and let's cd into that. So to bootstrap our app, the command is Prisma init. Now, what this is going to do is just take us through a little prompt and ask us a few questions. So let me make this a little bit bigger so that you can see everything in one line. So what's nice about Prisma is that you can actually use a lot of different databases with it. I think right now PostgreSQL and MongoDB are supported. But in case if you don't want to use any of those and you just want to get your feet wet with GraphQL, you can just use this demo server. Now the thing with the demo server is that it requires login. So what you'll want to do is actually go to prisma.io, and once you select this, there will actually be instructions. So you don't need to actually follow along right now. But you're going to choose demo server, and then they'll ask you to Control C out of this prompt, and you'll use Prisma login and -k with a JWT. And this will authenticate you for your console. Once you've done that, then you can go ahead and return to Prisma init. Okay. So choose the demo server, and then just choose whatever region you want. I'm on the West Coast, so I'll use one of these AWS with the lowest latency, 95 milliseconds. And I'll just call it Zenva GraphQL. It's a dev environment. And let's open up our directory tree. I don't have a directory tree because I need to open the project. So add project folder, and I'm going to add Zenva GraphQL here. You'll see two files got added to our Zenva GraphQL folder. Let's take a look at this prisma.yml file. In case if you're not familiar with YML files, YML stands for YAML, and I'm not really sure what YAML stands for, but YAML is often used for configuration. So as you can see, we have an endpoint, and this is auto-generated. This is my endpoint. You'll probably have a different endpoint. And then there's a data model that points to our data model. There's a couple of other configuration options we can add to prisma.yaml, but for the most part, we are not going to touch this for this course. Let's take a closer look at our data model.graphql. This is where we register all of our data. So here we registered a type called user, and the user has an ID with a unique type of ID, and it has a name with type of string. Now there's a couple of different primitives for GraphQL types. There's ID, there's string, there's number, and there's a lot more actually, but you can even define your own types. Right now we're just going to focus on string types and maybe even number types, but this is where you register all of your data. This exclamation point means that this field is required. So if there's a user without an ID, then the GraphQL will throw an error. If you want to define a type that has an optional field, such as, let's say, date of birth, we can just put string without the exclamation point. One of the benefits, as well as one of the detriments of using GraphQL, is that every single item that you have in your database must be registered in your GraphQL file. So if you wanted to use GraphQL to also manage, let's say, tweets, you won't be able to access the tweets if they're not listed in this file. So that's a benefit, because then this entire file becomes sort of a self-documenting file where you can see all of the root types and all of the relational types. We'll get into relational types later. But you can see all of it in one single file. You can also split this file, but a lot of people like to keep it in one file so that everything is in one place. The disadvantage of having to register all your files is exactly that. You need to register every single one. So if you have a lot of different distinct types, it gets kind of annoying to have to register all of them, just so that you can add a new GraphQL type, a new data type to your database. And it might seem like it's as simple as just adding a new type like type tweet, and then we have ID at unique, and then content is a string. But it actually gets a little bit more complicated than that once we start building our server up a little bit more. But in the next lesson, we'll go ahead and play with these distinct types and see how the different items we add here affect how we access our database.